Crows and many birds aggregate at night during the winter months to roost, just for security and safety and the social connection that that brings. And the fact that they do it in busy urban places, we think, is related to the lights, and it's warmer. If you get in here between the buildings and you're sheltered from the wind, that's what the science tells us. But quite honestly, I'm not sure how they really get any sleep. It's noisy down here.
For anyone who's experienced the mass evening migrations of these birds, the effect is eerie, even beautiful. But add enough of them to the urban landscape, and you've got yourself a sanitation problem.
It's just such a mess.
I know.
Jerry Jenkins and Lene Berg are two of the many folks responsible for keeping the downtown Portland business district people-friendly.
We were trying to address the crow droppings, and in around 2014, the number of crows that began to roost downtown seemed to increase substantially, so much so that it just became impossible to keep up with it. So I began to look for a solution.
Enter the Poopmaster 6000.
That gave us like a clear swath of sidewalk, but still didn't address the crow droppings that covered the fountains and the benches and the bus shelters. So we began to look at what could we do to address the source.
Traditional hazing methods, such as pyrotechnics and loud noises, really wouldn't work in a densely populated urban district. So Jerry had to get creative.
We were looking for something that would be, well, obviously that would be humane, that would be supported by the Audubon, and that would be supported by the community in Portland. So I got on the internet, and what I found is that it's an issue for urban areas nationwide, but nobody had a solution for it. So after more investigation, I had a friend say to me, have you thought about falconry?
Falconry is the art of using trained birds of prey to hunt game. People have been capturing and training wild birds of prey for 4,000 years.
Normally, you'd find Court Clayton and his raptors at a vineyard or berry field, chasing a variety of birds that eat the fruit. But Portland's crow problem posed an interesting challenge.
I had been mentally exploring the idea of using raptors to manage this crow situation for a few years, and then I was contacted by Jerry Jenkins from Portland Mall Management.
Court was interested, but Jerry's idea was just that, an idea. So Jerry reached out to Portland Clean and Safe, a service district funded by businesses to keep the downtown core clean and safe.
We just started talking about this idea of falconry, which to me was really intriguing.
Unwieldy for sure. It's like, it's not.
And I felt like, this would be worth an investment in a pilot project.
With support from Clean and Safe, the pilot was launched in early 2017.
I'm going to try to get them up in that tree where the crows.
I can back you up the laser.
We identified initially a pretty small 13-block area right in the core where we were having a lot of trouble with the crows. We thought if we could move them out of that area and push them to more appropriate roosting areas, Waterfront Park or some of the other parks, that would be a success.
To be clear, we're not talking about a small problem.
Last year, in the middle of the winter, we counted upwards of about 10,000 crows coming in to roost on one night, so it's substantial.
Likewise, as far as Court, Jerry, and Lene knew, nothing like this had ever been tried in an urban area before.
There were a lot of unknowns going into this. One of the most obvious was how well the hawks would operate at night.
He's talking about Harris hawks, and this one is named Mars.
It's a 3-year-old Harris hawk.
Harris hawks are a tropical species. They live and nest in the southern U.S. and down into Central America. They have a great temperament, they're very trainable, easy to work with, and they also see relatively well in low light conditions.
That's a plus, since the majority of the area's native raptors are active only during daylight hours.
We also weren't certain how well the crows would respond to hawks. You can't really know this until you test it.
But just a couple weeks into the 13-block pilot project, results were promising.
First off, the hawks were fine with all of the crazy things that are happening in downtown. They just do their job. They get up in the trees and follow us around, and they work great. And we also discovered that the crows respond consistently and reliably to the presence of our hawks. They retreat. It's really that simple.
And perhaps surprisingly, the hawks, which can be trained to follow laser pointers, don't have to do much to get a rise out of the crows.
The crows are here at night because they are in search of a safe and calm place to sleep. And the presence of one, let alone 4 or 5 predators flying around them while they're settling down to sleep is disturbing to them. Harris hawks are not particularly well suited to killing crows, but crows just can't afford from a biological or an evolutionary standpoint to take the chance. So their reaction is to disperse.
We walk around downtown, and wherever there's crows, we fly them. And so he flies for about a couple hours straight.
But do you fly it like once a week, every week?
I fly 6 days a week.
Oh, wow.
Well, generally, I think the reaction has been very positive. Some people don't notice at all. It's just Portland, somebody's walking around with a Harris hawk. And then other people are like, wow, that's really fascinating. Would you tell us about it?
We were contracted by the businesses down here to keep the crows from roosting in the central area of downtown. People do notice them. There's lots of pictures and lots of questions pretty often. It's about a third of the job down here is kind of being ambassadors for the whole project. But most people are pretty into it and excited to know that we're using nature in a way to help, correct problems within nature that man has created, essentially.
So far, I think it's been a big thumbs up. We're seeing them move out of the areas that were most problematic. And really that downtown stays more clean.
With the success of the project last year, it made sense to expand it considerably. So this year we're focusing on 63 blocks, and we have 4 falconers out here doing this full time.
When we first started, the crows were big numbers and hard to push around. As we have been down here several nights a week for the past 2.5 months, the numbers have dramatically dropped. Tonight we saw very few crows and even had a hard time finding crows to fly at.
It's a novel solution, and yes, it's very Portland. But will it solve the problem long term?
Crows are incredibly intelligent, and part of the reason they're so intelligent is because they're highly social. And so they learn from one another. We're hoping that by teaching this group of crows that this is not a particularly safe place, they will teach other crows to find safer, more sustainable places to spend the night.